going into actual PPC or Google Ads is just understanding the basics. Sometimes we get so caught up with all the shiny things that is coming out, hence us talking about Search Max here in a little bit. But it's really important for us to understand that quality traffic is the very, very first step. How do you get that quality traffic? That is many various different ways to get to that point, depending on what campaign or what niche. But just know quality traffic before conversions. How's it going, everybody? It's Gene Villanose and Ryan Fenton, and today we have another episode of the PPC Cave. How are you doing today, Ryan?
Yeah, really good. Just telling Gene before the show kicked off. Just busy at the moment. Tax season is among us, so crossing the T's, dotting the I's, getting all that in sorted. So yeah, how about you?
Yeah, man. Tax season is upon us. Today is April 3rd, 2025 for the books. So April 15th is actually over here in the US when taxes are due. So I just got mine done. And yeah, it's time to look forward for another fiscal year. And, I think me and Ryan are just very thankful, very grateful for just our PPC journey in general and the side business, and even thankful for the PPC Cave, being able to speak to everyone, our subscribers. It's always a pleasure for us. But today we're going to switch it up a little bit before we get into our topic, which is called What We Know About Search Max. We'll get into that later, but I want to ask Ryan, what is one piece of advice as a PPC manager that you want to give to someone more junior or perhaps starting out?
So just starting out, someone who wants to kind of okay. Um, Honestly, I'd probably say just like be you, be transparent, be honest, be open. Don't kind of gatekeep. Don't kind of like hide anything. Um, Take a bit. Can we swear?
Of course.
I always like to ask. I always like to check in. Right? Got to. It's become like a little tradition.
Yeah.
But take a bit of a no bullshit approach, right? With clients. I mean, this is mostly with clients. If you come from a agency background, you might see that a lot of the time, you know, directors, other team members may kind of, what's the word, like cover over the actual results. Like they'll what's the word I'm looking for? I can't even think. Like floss over or something, or like
Glance over.
no, more like just yeah, like hide the real results. Like if you've had a
Mhm.
crappy month, right? You're
Yeah.
kind of told agency side, oh, don't tell the client that, right? If we've only had 5 conversions this month and last month we had 50 conversions, don't tell the client that. Say that impressions went up, clicks went up, cost per click reduced, but the serious stuff like conversions have dropped, cost per conversion has increased, alarm bells are ringing type of thing. Hide all that away, don't mention that to the client, and everything will be fine. Just keep the client happy, keep them on the books. That is typically agency life, or at least
Mm.
how I experienced it, which I never agreed with. I never thought that was the right way because you're lying. You're lying. And, I had a director tell me once, bend the truth a little bit, and we've got to be a bit creative with the truth. And I just thought, this is not right. This is wrong. And, I would rather hold my hands up and say, you know what, I messed up. We had a rough month, but this is how I'm going to fix it. Or this is what I'm going to try and do next month, and hopefully results turn around. Because we're not magicians. We can't just magic something out of thin air. If results are bad and it's been consistently bad for the few months, then it is what it is, right? But yeah, don't lie, don't cheat, don't steal, to quote Eddie Guerrero. You, you know him? Yeah, you
Of
know
course, the lowrider, WWE, the child
Oh man,
custody
I don't know where that came from,
match. Yeah,
but
man, Eddie Guerrero.
old school. Yeah, so just be honest with your clients, right? Be transparent, show them the results, tell them it's been a crappy month, and then explain to them this is the steps I'm going to take to turn things around. If they leave, they leave, right? It is what it is, but I don't think you should lie to them. So that would be my advice. What about you, Gene?
Before I get into mine, let's just take time and understand what Ryan just mentioned. You know, and Ryan will never tell you this, but he has a lot of clients. And the reason why he has retention like that, because he operates with this type of integrity. And I'm not trying to just glaze or gas him up here, but this is the type of attitude you want from any, doesn't matter what type of freelancing you're doing. PPC just seems a little bit more opaque because of how complicated it is. But if you remain honest and transparent, you may lose one or two, but in the long term, maybe you don't want those clients to begin with, because someone that can appreciate honesty, I think that is a baseline of who I want to work with. So, yeah, that's really awesome, to just be fully transparent. Like you said, if maybe you mess up or maybe you don't have a good month, to just be completely transparent, I think that just shows a lot of character. And I would say 9 out of 10 clients will actually appreciate that more than just having the wool pulled over their eyes. So, yeah, I wanted to just state that. But for me, you know, going into actual PPC or Google Ads is just understanding the basics. Sometimes we get so caught up with all the shiny things that is coming out, hence us talking about Search Max here in a little bit. But it's really important for us to understand that quality traffic is the very, very first step. How do you get that quality traffic? That is many various different ways to get to that point, depending on what campaign or what niche. But just know quality traffic before conversions. Quality traffic before, you cannot skip, and it cannot go the other way where you're getting conversions first and then you're going to worry about quality traffic later. No, no, no. It's quality traffic first before conversion. That's what I want to tell anyone that may be looking to start in PPC. Yeah. Any wrapping up thoughts on our first little segment? We're gonna keep doing this each episode, but any thoughts, Ryan, before we move on?
I think I think that's a really good shout out what you said as well. Quality and focus on the basics. I think that's something I tend to forget a lot. I'm always trying to try different things. And at the moment, complete honesty, again, that's my policy. I've been trying a lot of broad match and I'm seeing it work in some accounts. I'm not seeing it work in other accounts. I'm probably going to go back to basics and go back to phrase and exact match. So, this is a journey. I don't think anyone can kind of sit there and say, right, I'm an expert, I'm a guru, whatever in Google Ads, because we're all students of the game, right? We're always learning, always new things coming out, and we need to adapt and change the approach. So yeah, I think that's a really good shout out by Gene about yeah, remember the basics and quality of traffic for sure. Yeah, I agree.
Cool. Appreciate that, man. But yeah, now that we have that, for y'all to kind of just chew on and think about, getting into Search Max. Essentially, what we know about Search Max, first thing is it's in closed beta, right? There are only specific accounts that have access to this currently, not all accounts. I'm sure it'll be rolled out fully here in the next couple of months. I'm not really sure when, but hopefully soon. But what it does is combines broad PMAX search, dynamic search ads, or DSA, into one fully automated campaign, being basically the PMAX side, but just for search ads. Is that what you've heard, Ryan, or kind of chime in on what you believe Search Max is?
Yeah, I thought it was going to be a new campaign type. I thought that it would be like Performance Max, but for search. And it's
Yeah.
not, I don't think, as far as I'm aware, it's not that. I think it's like a setting inside a search campaign that you just turn on and then it uses, I guess, similarities from performance. I mean, I'm going off like an article that I read probably about 3 or 4 weeks ago, so I'm probably not doing a very good job of quoting it and I've forgotten really. But as far as I know, it's a setting inside a search campaign for certain accounts, like Gene said, beta closed at the moment, we're closed, beta kind of testing. You turn it on and it uses things like, yeah, dynamic search ads, like search themes, I think, maybe audiences as well, that kind of thing. And yeah, I guess it works in the way that maybe a PMAX signal would work. I could be wrong. I'm not sure. Like I said, I read this article like 3 weeks ago. So I think, Gene, you're probably a little bit more up on it at the moment than me. So am I right? Am I wrong?
Yeah, so I've actually read in the last couple days up on it, and I don't know exactly if that is what it is, like a new campaign type. Um, in my opinion, it would make more sense it just being like a setting, like you said, in search, where it's like beyond auto create assets or auto create images or final URLs, but then technically that being underneath that same umbrella, but inside a search campaign. But I think what we do know, like Ryan mentioned, is it's essentially combining broad matches, audience signals, and basically some input that you have to put in, but it's going to be heavy on the AI and heavy on the real time bidding, just as PMAX would be, right? I think the biggest thing here is what are your initial thoughts of having another tool in the tool bag that's going away from what we've been so used to? Well, we've been becoming more accustomed to getting less control and less inputs as this being rolled out. What do you think about getting less control and basically just surrendering to something like a search max in the future?
I honestly don't know,
Yeah.
is the answer. I like to have, I mean, look, I'd be silly not to say I don't like to have control because we all do. All of us as account managers, we like to have some form of control, whether it's going through the search terms report, adding negative keywords, the ability to, like reduce, say, like certain products as a bid rather than exclude them. So with obviously standard shopping campaigns, you can do that. You could just lower the bid if you're on like a manual. Whereas obviously in Performance Max, you can only exclude the products. You can't reduce the bid. But that's the other thing is like bidding changes, manual bidding and things like that. So that's the control side of it, which I think we can steer it in the right direction. To rely on AI, to rely on Google's algorithm and things like that. I think I said last week or the week before that this is the way that it's kind of moving at the moment with, broad match and all the signals there. But honestly, I don't know because where I'm at the moment, I'm testing both. I'm testing broad, I'm testing phrase and exact. And I think maybe the fundamentals are always going to be the same, and that's how we kind of start the show is, you know, go back to basics and things, and so I think Search Max will give us another option, which is good, something a little bit different, but I think it should be tested in its own environment. I think my advice and I don't know that much about it right now, but my advice would be to do what you know, whether it's phrase exact, whether it's a combination of all three, and a max clicks bidding strategy, max conversions, whatever. Have that as your main campaign, and then once Search Max is released, if you do want to try it, maybe for a very successful client of yours or something like that that's dialed in, test it in its own environment, create a brand new campaign, or do a duplicate of a successful search campaign and then trial it that way. But as we know right now, it is in closed beta, so it depends if this is going to get rolled out. I suspect it will do because why go all the way to launch it, announce it to the press, I guess, about Search Max and not kind of go forward with it? But time will tell, I guess. What do you think, Gene?
Yeah, I'm a little skeptical, like we always should be. I feel like because search is the very beginning campaign type that Google Ads from the very beginning had, right? And they did some things with um, specific broad match modifiers, or perhaps did some things within the search campaign structure that maybe improved or gave us more or less control, but in their eyes improved how it could be used. But sometimes when Google improves something or what they think they're improving, it kind of takes away from the PPC manager aspect of us actually getting into the account and doing things more manually. So it's a double-edged sword. I, am skeptical because it's like, okay, they're basically, I mean, now you have PMax and SearchMax. What else do I need to really do other than make sure the merchant center is good, and optimized, and then, so I can see the writing on the wall with Search Max being in beta and then perhaps getting rolled out. But it's like, man, like, what is the next step after Search Max? Do you just get a Max Google Max like account? Or it's just like you just log in and everything just does everything or automated, and you don't need any human touch or any analytics. It just automates it, So I don't know, but I think it's important for us to be not too biased, and to give it a shot and to try it out. But yeah, I mean, now that they want to combine automation with intent-based targeting, and essentially you're combining three things that are in Google Ads right now, as we mentioned: PMax, Broad Match, and DSAs. I want to ask you, Ryan, what is the extent of you trying dynamic search ads within your search campaigns for your clients?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I've done it before because you can create a dynamic search ad group, and that's I guess it's fine, but it takes away from your other ad groups. So now I've always kind of created a dynamic search campaign rather than
Yeah.
an ad group. So that's typically how I do things. But I think if you have a dynamic search ad group, it's going to take away from your more traditional ad groups. So I don't really agree with it anymore, but yeah, who knows how this new Search Max is going to perform? Although I will say that I remember when you were very, what's the word? Um, like, oh, I don't want to try Performance Max. It's rubbish. I'm not going to do that. Smart shopping is king, or standard shopping is king, and this, that, and the other. And now you're like Mr. PMax, right? You like the poster boy for PMax.
Yeah, I love
It should be
Emacs.
like a jersey of like Google with like PMax on the back, number one, and you signing the contract or something because you love it. So.
Yep, we should have that jersey, and then number two right behind it should be PMax feed only, because I love me PMax feed only, and you're the one who kind of like pushed me on that. So,
I did.
it,
It's
yeah,
my fault.
yeah, it's your fault that I'm getting all 20% return on ad, 20 ROAS on a client because of that. But yeah, no, I mean, it is part of the game, where we're very skeptical. It's like someone going into your house that you don't know, and this is the house that we know, or that this is our house, and someone's going inside and touching our stuff and intruding. So of course we're a little skeptical and we want to protect what we have. But I think Search Max in general, that's why I asked you about DSA is, because I think DSA can work for specific people or accounts. I remember using a dynamic search ad campaign, like Ryan says, if you are going to use DSA to put in a regular search campaign with your regular RSAs, it's just going to, because since it's automated, I feel like it just eats up more impressions and clicks. So it's better for you to just pull it out, do a dynamic search campaign where that's the only type of ad group or type of ads that you have. I think it's just more efficient that way. But going on, I once had a client that had so many different, it was a women's clothing brand. They had so many different catalogs and collections. It would be summertime and they still wanted to push their winter clothing and all these things. So for that, where it's like you can't find a pattern because the e-commerce catalog is so high, I found that running a dynamic search ad to a specific, landing page and just letting Google do its thing with that actually really worked, because I could go through the collections and test, test, test. Okay, these are terrible. You have one that's converting, keep that. Pull in the others, test, test, test. So I think talking about Search Max, I think this could really benefit people that might have larger product catalogs, which, you might not know the winner just yet, or you want to expand past your best top sellers and see what other products within that large catalog can be, profitable for you. And maybe accounts lacking historical data. Sometimes I've had a client back then multiple times where I just run a search in a PMax. And of course, PMax will take your conversions, but with little to no historical data, it starts showing, pages and product pages and products that I would never think of showing, and then you start seeing conversions faster. So maybe, down the road, accounts lacking historical data can really benefit from an automated place of Search Max, relying more on the machine learning. But yeah, what do you think about who could possibly, where can Search Max possibly outperform traditional search campaigns in the future?
I like this question. I think, if you've got an account that you've had for a while and you feel like you're getting everything out of it, it's really dialed in, you're happy with the conversions, cost per conversion, conversion value, ROAS, whatever, right? Maybe it's a 3-year-old client, 5-year-old client, whatever it might be, and you're happy with everything, but you still want to test, you still want to see, well, can we get any more? Is there another avenue that we're not tapping into? Is there something else? And I think maybe running a Search Max campaign or whatever it is, could help identify that. So this is where I talked about at the beginning that it should be tested in its own environment. And I don't think, if personally for me, if I sign a new client, I wouldn't set them up, at least because I don't know that much about it right now about Search Max. I wouldn't set them up with Search Max. I would wait a while and probably do it in an account where I've had it for a while. I think, okay, well, I know that these campaigns are performing well. Let's just see what Search Max has to offer, what power it can do, and see if it can bring any additional conversions in. The worry there is it similar to Performance Max in that it may steal conversions away. So we knew for a while that Performance Max would um, win in the auction 9 times out of 10 over standard shopping, and you couldn't run the same products in standard shopping as you would do in Performance Max, because Performance Max is a bull in a china shop, goes in, takes all the impressions, all the clicks, all the cost, all the conversions, and doesn't let the standard shopping campaign run. So if that is the same with Search Max and just search, that would be a concern, because then all of a sudden, if you have like a 3-year-old account where the client has been dialed in, it's been working really well, you introduced Search Max as like a new campaign, and it's going to steal all those conversions away, then your really well oiled campaigns that are performing well all of a sudden start to dip and don't perform because of Search Max. So that is a big concern. So I don't know if they're going to open it up to like an experiment where you can just take 50-50. So you have your base campaign and then you've got 50% of the budget going towards Search Max. That might be a better way of doing it, so you can evaluate the results that way without actually hurting the search campaign to a degree. But yeah, that's kind of how I would kind of see it potentially outperforming a search campaign. But this is what I would say: is do it in an account that you've had for a while and you feel confident with.
Yeah, I agree. That might be definitely a place where traditional search, or Search Max does better than traditional search. Another place would probably be areas of, or accounts where it's more brand discovery or awareness campaigns. Me and Ryan don't really know much about this, is because we're performance marketers. We get paid because we're driving cost per conversion down or return on ad spend up. But I do have some of my customers that are like, yeah, I just want awareness, but that's not their full goal. You know what I'm saying? That would be an awesome client. That's all they care about is clicks and impressions. But yeah, brand discovery or awareness, if your goal is reach over precision, I think that could Search Max could be definitely something for you. But going back, that's the positives of Search Max, or what could be. Let's kind of pull it back into what we call reality. what you would consider potential drawbacks or early concerns of search max being in an account. How does that go, or how does that look for you, Ryan?
Yeah, well, like I just mentioned, I think pulling any conversions away from other campaign types is a concern. I think if we have a dialed in search campaign, we don't want it to all of a sudden sort of like stop performing or see conversions dip and drop and, tank the campaign. So we don't want that crossover. We want them to be two separate campaigns and not have Search Max steal conversions or data away from the campaigns we were originally running. So that's a concern. Is there any, like, are they going to steal like data away from other campaigns? Overlap. Um, I guess another thing is that, I mean, I think we're quite used to now relinquishing control to a degree with Google. We still have, manual bidding, which is great. We still have max clicks as well with the CPC, which is great because it gives us that control. We still have search terms, negative keywords, but there is that element of, broad match, smart bidding. There is the element of performance max. And is Search Max going to further take away from the control we have as advertisers? So there's kind of a worry there, but um, I think I don't know. I mean, when I look at it realistically, I just think we're moving with the times. This isn't 2016 anymore, where we had manual bidding and everyone loved it. We had SCAGs, we had broad match modified, expanded text ads. All that is like old school now, and we're in 2025. We're making use of AI a lot more than we ever have. We're constantly innovating, and I think we're just moving with the times. So I think where we're at the moment is we've got the 50-50. We have the ability to go full control, manual bidding, old school, maybe not SCAGs and things like that, but we can certainly have single themed ad groups. We can, monitor the search terms report. We can have standard shopping. We can do all that kind of stuff. But we have 50% where it's no, we can let the algorithm take the load and do the heavy lifting for us with things like max conversions, target return on ad spend, performance max signals, the smart bidding signals as well. So we've kind of got I mean, as much as we bash it, actually, we've kind of got a really good mix of control versus automation. The worry would be if the automation starts to outperform, or not even outperform, but overtake the manual side of it. If we kind of move to more 70% automation and 30% manual, maybe that's a bit more of a concern. But right now, I kind of see it as 50-50. If you want to, if you want to do shopping, great. If you're an e-commerce company, you got standard shopping, you got performance max. If you're a lead gen, you can do like search campaign. You could, have like broad match with smart bidding, or you could do the old school like manual max clicks with phrase, exact match, single theme ad group. So all in all, I think the potential. I waffle, don't I? I keep rambling on. Um, the drawbacks are what?
You're good.
I'm good. Okay.
Yeah, it's making
Tell me
sense to
to shut
me.
up or something. No, it's
No.
good. But no, I guess the point I'm trying to make is that well, I forgot what the point is I was trying to make. But I think that we've got a really good mix between manual stuff and automated stuff. What are your thoughts? Or I think you've already answered that. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean I think the validity of loss of control moving towards AI taking the wheel is something that we are beginning to get used to, but I think it's just going to be very strange. Essentially working on the search aspect of Google Ads and not having full control over putting a keyword in. I don't know anyone that uses the broad match only search setting on a
Oh
search
yeah.
campaign. That's the worst thing. I've sometimes, I've seen that automatically get recommended, and I'm like trying to put a search keyword that's like phrase or exact, and it's like,
Yeah.
no, 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 you have to change this. But I don't know who would use that. But I think that's just part of the times, as Ryan has mentioned, to not have control over what search keywords are going in a search campaign is very alien to me and foreign. not having, ad text or landing pages where you could put in, this is where I want it to go, this is the text. That could be very strange. But I think another drawback with that is just, increased cost. And when you begin to broaden your targeting, as good PPC managers have to face down the road, if you're scaling, that's essentially what you're doing, is you're beginning to broaden what hasn't converted before and find what could possibly convert. There's going to be higher CPCs, and sometimes you're going to waste spend because there's going to be low intent traffic. But I think that's just what we have to put up with until the algorithm learns, the machine learning is in effect, and you have enough account conversions or campaign search max campaign conversions to kind of set the tone of who you want to target in the future. But then I also think it's the transparency issue. That's another drawback. It took us how many years until we finally got search terms in Performance Max, as Ryan wants to discuss here shortly, but it's unclear how AI is going to be making decisions for Search Max, and maybe that's going to make optimization a little bit more difficult. Any thoughts before we move on, Ryan?
No, I think you hit the nail on the head. So,
Yeah. So lastly, when can we expect a full rollout? I think it's safe to say it's probably going to be sometime in 2025. I feel like what they've done in the past with smart shopping, where first it's regular shopping into smart shopping, and then essentially smart shopping into PMax. There's these little steps. You get little Easter eggs inside accounts. Oh, broad match only in a search campaign. Why would anyone want this? Oh, maybe because it's going to be used for Search Max down the road. Oh, DSA, that's a weird, where are they going to use it? So I think there's a conglomeration of little Easter eggs inside Google Ads account. And we've seen from Adrian Decker on LinkedIn that it's actually in accounts already. I think within 2025, Search Max might be either a new PMax campaign or a new campaign type or something within search. What do you think about when it'll roll out, Ryan? And what do you do in the meantime before, it rolls out?
um, I think maybe the summer. If we look at, trying to think now, what was the last release? I can't remember, but there was a big, it was, I think it was responsive search ads that I'm thinking of that was kind of getting removed, or they were sunsetting it um, back in like June of 22 or something. I can't remember, but typically what I see is that Google do big releases in the summer. So maybe if it is going to be this year, it will be in the summer, but it depends how much of a data set they want from their beta testers. They may hold off until quarter four of 2025, maybe even look to maybe like the first couple of quarters of 2026. So I don't really know when it's going to get launched, in all honesty. If they've got people testing it now, it depends how much of a data set they want to get. You would expect a large one before they roll it out into accounts, especially with the backlash, if I remember, with Google, what it's called, is it Gemini now, the AI that they called it?
Yeah.
But do you remember when they launched Bard?
Yeah.
Like the first version, like
Yeah.
because everyone was talking about Chat GPT, everyone Google were like, okay, we need to throw something out. Let's throw out Google Bard, like Bard or whatever it was. And I think that got a bit of a backlash about, oh, it's been rushed and no one's really thought about it, things like that. So I think with Search Max, they probably don't want to do that again. I think they want to take their time. So maybe 2025, maybe 2026. I don't know. What do we do in the meantime? All I can say is stay up to date with industry news. If there's any new releases, anything that Google suggests or, people talk about. I mean, I'll shout out some right now, but Search Engine Roundtable is a good one. Search Engine Land is another one. Um, yeah, I think I can't even. Those are the main two that I look at. But definitely Search Engine Roundtable is the one I get that emailed to me on a daily basis. I think it's Barry Schwartz that does that. I think he's the guy behind it. I could be wrong, but I love those. I think they're really good. So yeah, just take 5 minutes out of your day, whether you in-house, agency, freelancer. Just yeah, 5 minutes. Have a read through, top line, kind of bullet point. Okay, this is what's happening. and it's a daily recap, and it's really handy. So I'd say keep on top of that. Otherwise, just focus on what we have available at the moment and generate the best results possible for your clients. Um, and then yeah, when Google say we've got Search Max, maybe my like recommendation would be to give it 3 months, maybe even 4 months of letting other people test Search Max out in the open. Don't just turn it on straight away and say, right, let's see what happens. You could do, I guess, and see what happens. But normally I like to hear the general consensus first. Let everyone else test it, see what they're saying about it, get some data, and then look to roll out. So I'd always be a bit more slow off the heels rather than just be a leader and like, right, I've got this great account. I'm gonna do search max on it, and tank everything. I'd rather wait for a little while. Just okay, like no, you like what can I say? Like yeah, you go first type of thing, and then evaluate the results after that. How about you?
Yeah, I'm
You
def
what would you do in the meantime?
I feel like I'm more of a second mover like you, but I like to test, so whenever it does come out, I probably do a small test and see, maybe on a low stakes account that might not have too
Mm.
many account conversions already. Just because I'm always down for efficiency, if this is what we call efficiency. But yeah, I mean, doing in the meantime, I think it's just keeping up with, like the news. I think Ryan shouted a couple. For me, I like ppcnewsfeed.com. I think that's ran by Hannah, and Adrian Decker. Those are the two people that I usually follow. Google Ads, PPC in general, is consistently changing. So it's part of our job too, as a PPC, specialists and managers, to make sure we're up to date with what's going on here in an ever changing, landscape universe when it comes to PPC. But I think there's not much you can do other than just make sure that your accounts are on point, the landing pages that you have are structured the way they should be structured on your Google Ads. Just continue to do search campaigns, and I think in the long run, I think we'll understand, like, oh, there is a bigger picture here that's been being painted by not just Google Ads but Google in general. And I hope that's still positive for PPC managers. I'm not trying to doom and gloom, but it's just hard not to speculate, the changes that could be. I was thinking about this when you were talking, Ryan. It's like we've been doing this for so long. Imagine being a new PPC manager in 2025 or 2026, where all you hear is Search Max and P Max, and those are your best tools that you use. And you have no experience in anything manual, such as a search campaign or a shopping campaign. At least for us, we've seen it all, where we can dive into a more manual approach or dive into a more automated approach, and then pick and choose out of the toolbox or tool bag what to use for a specific situation or client. But yeah, I think it's an interesting place where we're definitely headed. Before we close out the Search Max portion and get to our last question of advice, any thoughts, Ryan?
No, I think that's really good, and yeah, definitely having more tools in the bag is always a bonus. But I'm a little hesitant at the moment about Search Max. We'll see what happens, I guess, over the coming months. But before we do close out, I do want to say that Gene referred to it earlier about the news flash that I think is really important to kind of mention. Can I share my screen? I don't know if I'm allowed to. I don't know if that translates well on
Yeah,
YouTube or not.
we'll have Joel figure it out. But yeah, let me go ahead.
Okay, cool. So yeah, the big news, Google Ads search terms reports gets PMax terms. So now we get search terms in Performance Max. Now this has been a huge thing, and I think is this the woman you was talking about, the lady
Yeah.
Hannah? Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, yeah. So she notified, I guess, someone. I think it's Barry on X, and yeah, now we have search terms in PMax, which as a advertiser and as a Google Ads account manager, this is something we've been pushing for years. The other thing I think is understanding where the budget is going and how much of the budget is going to different platforms inside Performance Max. I think that would be the next or final step is right, we have that information now. We've got kind of everything. So I think this is a huge win to kind of keep the search element inside Performance Max on point. I don't know if it's going to tell us where, like, okay, this like search was on YouTube or on the search channel or if it was wherever, but I think this gives us a lot more insight into how well the Performance Max campaigns are performing, if they're on point. Um, but yeah, this is a huge win, and I saw it come out a couple of weeks ago, I think last week. I thought I had to mention it on the PPC Cave, try and bring you guys the most up-to-date relevant news of the big releases. Gene, what's your thoughts on search terms inside Performance Max?
Yeah, I think short of running the Mike Rhodes script to find out placement within a P Max campaign, this is up that alley of transparency. So I think this is what you said. I agree that it's a win, to be able to put negative keywords in through a search term report. Granted, we all know that not all search terms are pulled in. We don't see every search term, but to see something like this, yeah, that's definitely a good thing for sure.
Awesome. So I just wanted to share that, and you kind of heard it there first on Gene's kind of channel that he uses, PPC Newsfeed. But you can see as well just what I was saying before about the daily search recap inside Search Engine Roundtable, kind of killing two birds with one stone here. But yeah, it just gives you that, and it gives you a full breakdown. If I just click on this, of what's been going on for that day. You could scroll all the way down, you get maps, you get SEO, and then you've got PPC there as well, which is cool. So you get all the latest feedback from X.com and just everything, which is really good. So I would recommend subscribing to the newsletter. It's really, really handy. But also, I'm gonna check out PPC Newsfeed. I actually didn't really hear about it until Gene's mentioned it, so I'm gonna take a look at that. But yeah, whichever one, I'm sure both are really, really good. So yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Well, so that concludes our search max, but to kick it off or to end our episode here, I want Ryan to go first. What is one piece of advice as a small business owner, freelancer, doing Google Ads management that you could provide to someone maybe looking to do so also?
Yeah, so we talked about this beforehand, and it's not Google Ads related at all. Um, Pretty much the same as when we started the episode. It wasn't really that related to Google Ads about just being open and honest and professional. But for me, the piece of advice for any small business owner, whether you're doing Google Ads or not, get an accountant is what I would say. Which might sound surprising, like why is it not Google Ads related? But for me, getting in, working or having an accountant was one of the best decisions I ever made. And the reason for that is because these guys, you know, they keep the books clean, they keep the business, they kind of keep all the books in order, I should say, right? And they make sure that you're on point with everything. And Gene's probably a lot more intelligent than I am and stuff, but I don't really know anything about tax returns or this, that, and the other. I'm happy to listen and understand, and obviously I have a bit of a business mind to know, this, that, and the other. But getting an accountant was a huge win for me. And when I just started out, I was telling Gene this story. If I'd have just carried on as I was and then got an accountant, in April or whatever when I just started, I would have had to pay 15,000 in tax in my first year. I didn't even have 15,000 saved up at that point, so that was kind of scary. And that was if I didn't have an accountant. But because I got an accountant pretty much straight away, I only had to pay 5,000. So the way I looked at it was the accountant saved me like 10,000 pounds in basically tax, which I thought was amazing. So Yeah, shout out to Kyle and Adam at HM Accountancy Services here in the UK, not too far from me. I actually saw Kyle last week. I think he subscribes, but he doesn't watch the videos. It's fine. He's a busy cat, so I get that. But yeah, honestly, get an accountant. They're absolutely fantastic, and they can really help with your business. I wouldn't be where I am if I didn't have an accountant. Put it that way. So that would be my advice. What about you?
I think that's still good advice. I think that might not be Google Ads related, but it'll definitely make time for you to do more Google Ads if you're not worrying about, taxes. So yeah, very timely now that we're in April here. But yeah, I think for me in the beginning, your upside has to be more than what you charge. And what I mean by that is if you have no reviews or you're just getting your name out there, be ready to work for less than what you think you should be getting paid. I know that sounds counterintuitive where a lot of people are like, oh, I have to be paid a certain amount. But I remember it wasn't Google Ads, but I was doing client work for free, just because I knew down the road, this is the way to get there is to have people talk about me in a good light, perhaps word of mouth, you know, and then I have to do that where they can't lose basically because they're either paying me nothing or they're paying me very little, you know. So I think I may be talking to another generation here, uh, where they believe that I need to get max amount right now before I prove anything to the world. I'm in the school of thought that you have to pay your dues first, prove what you're worth, and then you could charge whatever you please. So that worked for me, might work different for you, but I think that would be one piece of advice I give someone looking to do this as a business. Um,
Wow, that's really
any
good.
thanks, man. Any final thoughts, Ryan, before we close out?
No, no, no final thoughts. I think interesting episode, maybe a little bit different to what we normally do. Obviously, talking about search max and things like that. A couple of new segments there, and some general advice to people to help them get started. I think is really good. So, yeah, I think we had a really good episode.
Awesome, man. Yeah, I think we did really well, and we want to be able to provide different things, not just monotonous content. But as we are signing off, I want to remind everybody that we release every Monday, 12 a.m. That's on Spotify video, regular Spotify, YouTube video, and you could find us on TikTok, YouTube Shorts, and also IG Reels, or is it? Yeah. And then if you have any questions, we're at the PPC Cave at gmail.com. We're still waiting for y'all to ask us questions. We're ready to answer them. We have so much, content that we want to provide. We just don't know where to start. But yeah, if y'all could ask us questions, that would be very helpful. Where can they find you, Ryan, if they'd like your services?
I'm gonna try and do your twang. Ryan Fenton, PPC.com. It's not actually that at all.
No,
Ryan Fenton, PPC.co.uk. How about you, Gene?
that's genevillanos.com. But yeah, I think
Nice.
thank you. I think we did a pretty good episode here.
Yeah.
Keep up with us, and if there's nothing else, bye for now.